Hello and welcome to the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. We made it. The finish line's right there. You can see it. In fact, I think some of you are probably already across it, gauging on some of the traffic that I saw today. But that being said, another bright sunny day as we head into the weekend. First half of the weekend looking good, much like last weekend. We'll get an updated look at the forecast in hour number 3 today with Aalders Aalders when he stops by. But it looks like Saturday is going to be your best bet, at least at this point. Looks like a bit of a wet Sunday and a wet start to the work week, but we're not even going to talk about that, are we? Because it's the weekend. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Before we get any further, my sincere thanks to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass for the last 2 weeks, keeping things orderly and moving forward. Not an easy task. This, of course, is my last hours, I guess, sitting in the chair as Todd enjoying his last few minutes of vacation time, and we'll be back in the big chair on Monday. So I know you're all looking forward to that, and I am looking forward to listening to Todd and his return and hearing all about his experiences over the last 2 weeks. You've heard it in the news. It's been their top story all morning. No injuries after overnight fire on Quinpool last night. Now, traffic is still snarled up there a bit from what I understand. Listening to and hearing from Halifax Fire this morning, it sounds like there's going to be crews on that scene I think it's the 6800 block of Quinpool across from the gas station there, and in a building next to a building that was under construction, an older building from what I'm reading in the stories that had a deep-seated fire, which was difficult for the firefighters to get. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of the firefighters on that fire last night and all the firefighters in HRM. I think I've said it on here before, and I will continue to say it, that I sleep better at night knowing that those folks are on the job and are keeping us safe. Pre-market trade is up a bit this morning, 146 points at last check after yesterday's sell-off. Did you see the new polls that have been coming out on this? Two-thirds of Canadians expect to feel the effects of Trump's tariffs. Also saw some data from duty-free shops this morning. They've seen a 50% drop in sales. You know, the duty-free shops, and these are at the major crossings, border crossings. The more remote crossings are seeing even bigger numbers into the 60s and 70s, if not more. Return trips by car from the United States into Canada down 32% in March. That's March break, right? That's normally a very busy time. Not as a big an impact at the airports, down 13.5%, but still a decline. So it seems that we are heeding the call to maybe not vacation in the United States. We'll talk about that, of course, in the open hour today. Don't forget, coming up in about 15 minutes' time, we're going to have a conversation with the Chief of Halifax Regional Police. He'll be here to talk to us a little bit about the ongoing gun problem in the city, and I've got a couple other questions for him. Don MacLean will be your guest when we come back. But first, round 2 of the Q League playoffs go tonight. The Moose are on the road to face Rouyn-Noranda. The Huskies have had a couple of days off to digest that record-setting series win earlier this week in Drummondville. Now it's time to get back to work, and that means that our play-by-play announcer, Garreth MacDonald, is getting ready to go back to work after spending a couple of days in the thriving metropolitan area of Rouyn-Noranda. Garreth, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Dan. How are you?
How are things in northern Quebec?
Still a little snowy.
Yeah.
But, not too bad. I mean, there's still snow in the ground. I shouldn't say it's not snowing, but definitely chilly overnight here in these northern climes. And, a little snow on the ground. So it feels like hockey weather.
It is hockey weather, and it's hockey time. Garreth, obviously a record-breaking win for the Mooseheads in Drummondville earlier this week. They've had a couple days now to kind of reflect back on that. Is that something they've been doing, or has it been all focused forward and getting ready for tonight?
Yeah, I think with the tight turnarounds here, I don't think there's a whole lot of time to kind of sit back and reflect. I know the coaching staff, they have to switch gears pretty quickly. So They've been grinding here, trying to get their pre-scouts ready, trying to get set for a matchup with the Rouyn-Noranda Huskies. I think we know going in that, once again, the Mooseheads are a big-time underdog in the last series against Drummondville. That was a team that finished 38 points ahead of them in the standings. The Huskies finished 34 points ahead in the standings. So it's another stiff test here for the Mooseheads.
How do the Moose stack up against the Huskies as we head into this series, Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's another underdog situation for sure. I think when you look at the Huskies, they might even have a bit more depth. I mean, I think when we look at the series with Drummondville, we knew that they were really led by Bridgewater's Luke Woodworth. He had Ethan Gauthier and Sam Oliver. You had a few veterans on that team that really did all of the scoring. And I think when you look at the Huskies, they've got a really potent top line as well, with Bill Zonin expected to be a first-round pick, young guy out of Montreal. They've got Antonin Veinotte now, an overager in the Q. He led the Q in scoring last year. Is kind of really rounded out his game this year. Still led his team in scoring. Had overall the production dipped a little bit, but I think there were some big strides made with his overall game. And then you got Swiss import Lars Steiner, who the Mooseheads have now seen a couple of times. Great pick out of Switzerland, a guy that only turned 17 back in November. He's been real impressive. But I think when you go beyond those big three guys, the guys that really lead the way offensively up front, there's definitely a bit more scoring punch than the Mooseheads would have faced in the last round. And on the back end, I mean, they've got some pretty serious weapons back there. It starts with Ty Higgins, who had more points than any defenseman in the queue this past season, a guy that the Mooseheads would have seen a whole lot a couple of years ago. Brady Schultz would be real familiar with him, Braden McPhee as well, some of the older guys on the Mooseheads roster, former captain with the Acadie Bathurst Titan, now in his, I guess, first full season here in Rouen after being dealt last year during the trade period. But, and then there's Middle Sackville's Alex Carr, who was a one-time Moosehead, was a fourth-round pick of the team back in 2020. Another Nova Scotia connection here in a playoff round. This Rouen team, again, they got a whole lot of firepower, a whole lot of weapons. So I think it's going to be really important here for the Mooseheads to play the way that gave them success in the last round. Those 4 wins that they had against Drummondville, I think when you look back to all 4 of those games, what they were really able to do was just play a very simple game. No messing around. You don't want to give up any odd man rushes. They didn't want to do that against Drummondville. They certainly aren't going to want to do that against Rouyn-Noranda. Just chip pucks in, get the pucks in behind the defense, and then try to go to work on the forecheck. And again, those were some of the things that gave the Mooseheads success in that last round. And it didn't hurt to have a guy like Jacob Steinman as well, making 38 saves for a shutout in Game 7. He was just fantastic once again.
In the lead up to Game 7, Gareth, you said there was a lot of ice bags getting passed around the Mooseheads locker room. How are the Herd doing injury-wise heading into tonight's Game 1?
Yeah, that's playoffs for you. I don't think there's any new injuries that came out of Game 7. I think it's just it's the usual little nicks and bruises that come along with playoff hockey. So yeah, the guys are trying to battle through that. But yeah, still missing Justin Shearers, who was injured back in the first game of that last round. Will Bent got hurt in the first game of that last round. 2 really promising rookies for the Mooseheads. So those were a couple of big-time absences. They also lost Kalen Blake in Game 5 against the Drummondville Voltigeurs. And then Eddie Doyle, he was hurt late in the year. And again, no imminent return for him coming up here. So it's at this point just the four main injuries from again that last round and late in the season.
So the series is again a 2-3-2. First 2 games are in Rouyn-Noranda. Then we come back home for 3 here in Halifax starting on Tuesday night. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be a quick turnaround here. You got the Moose, they were the only series that matchup they had with the Volts in round 1. They're the only series that went 7 games. Rouen has just kind of been waiting around for them since last Friday night, and they're all set to go. They were able to punch their ticket with a Game 5 victory over the Gatineau Olympiques. So they've had a week off at home to get set for this one, and obviously the same cannot be said about the Mooseheads, who had to jump on the plane the very next day after that Game 7 win over Drummondville. So when you look at the schedule, again, it's not just that you have these two games on Friday and Saturday night back to back. You're also missing a couple hours here. It's that Saturday game. It's a pretty quick turnaround. That's a 4 p.m. local start, I think, as well. So a tight turnaround right there for a Mooseheads team coming off a very physical and emotional opening round matchup with Drummondville. But as you said, they've got a chance to head back to Halifax. It'd be great to steal one, and then you've got at least 3 games on home ice when you come back home.
Pressure has to be on the Huskies, right? I mean, the Mooseheads aren't even supposed to be there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, at this point, this Mooseheads team, they know they're playing with house money right now. Again, I know we talked about it a few times, but you look back to the last series, there was a lot of people that didn't even expect them to win a game in that last series. They were expecting a sweep. So certainly right now, all of the pressure is on the Rouyn-Noranda Huskies for sure, and kind of a similar situation to again that last round where no one was giving the Moose much of a fighting chance at all.
Games 3, 4, and 5, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Friday night tickets are on sale. I suspect that the building will have a pretty solid crowd here on those 3 games. I imagine that there'll be a packed house tonight up there in northern Quebec.
Yeah, I would think so. It can get pretty rowdy here. Again, it's kind of similar. Come playoff time in Quebec, the air horns come out. It gets noisy in there. It gets pretty raucous. And yeah, we saw what this place was like back in 2019. I was fortunate to be, with the team for that run to the finals back in 19, where they faced off against the Huskies, and obviously that didn't end the Mooseheads' way. They will be hoping for a better fate this time around, and absolutely would be fantastic to see a real packed Scotiabank Center last week. I think this team right now, they're starting to open up some eyes, and they've been pretty captivating here. There's some belief building, I think, in Moose Country right now.
Garreth, it's always a pleasure. I know you're busy getting ready for tonight's contest. We're looking forward to the call.
Well, I am looking forward to it as well, Dan. Always great to chat with you.
All right, Garreth, appreciate it.
Take care.
That is Garreth MacDonald, play-by-play announcer right here, 95.7 News Radio. Note, game time tonight is 8 o'clock Atlantic time. It's a Quebec start, so it's 8 o'clock Atlantic time. I know that you're all going to be pulling for the Moose as they continue this run. I don't want to say improbable run because, we're only through one round, but the Moose aren't supposed to be here. They were supposed to get swept in round 1. That didn't happen. They beat Drummondville. Can they continue the Cinderella run to the Memorial Cup? There's only one place you're going to be able to find out. That's right here on 95.7 News Radio. A little bit later tonight. We're going to take our first break on the Fabulous Friday edition of the program. On the other side of it, a conversation with the Chief of Halifax Regional Police, Don MacLean, will be your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Happy Friday. We're back in bits.
Thanks.
Welcome back to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Hope you're having a fabulous Friday, as this is the Fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. It's been a few weeks since the last time we've had an opportunity to speak with our next guest, so we're very pleased to welcome to the program today the Chief of Halifax Regional Police, Don MacLean. Chief MacLean, how are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. I know you're busy, and I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'll get right to it. We've seen an increase in the number of shootings in HRM as of late. Do police know why this is happening?
Certainly, when you have a string of firearm shootings within a relatively short period of time, then obviously it has an impact on the community as well as it has an impact on us. The motives may vary, and when it comes to some of this violence, in terms of from more mundane conflicts that escalate, unreasonably, to more issues of dealing with people that are involved in crime type activity. So there really is a full gamut as to some of the motives behind some of these issues.
Is there gang war going on, Chief?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think we have to be careful when we say that. Like I said, like I said, from some of our investigative efforts, we see that some of these incidents are while they're certainly not random and more targeted in nature. Like I said, the rationale for them can be extremely varied in terms of what originates to that level of violence.
Are any of these most recent ones, and I'm thinking Chocolate Lake and Montebello and the ones that we've seen over the last few weeks, Chief, are they related or are they individual events?
That's something that the investigators are still looking at. They're certainly looking at linkages between any shootings that take place. That's one of the things that takes place as part of the investigative efforts. At this particular time, there's not necessarily any information to directly link them together, but at the same time, like I said, that still remains something that will be looked into.
What's HRP? Is there a long-term plan to deal with what is an obvious gun problem here?
Well, I think clearly, and let's be clear, any one incident of gun violence is too much. We've seen, just last week we took 9 firearms off the streets in relation to the efforts of our investigative teams in terms of, I send my thanks out to the investigative teams and as well as the emergency response teams who are often on the front line of doing those things. In terms of, over the last number of years, I believe last year, when I reported to the board, we had, taken over 400 firearms off the street. So there is always an investigative effort and officers working diligently both at the investigative level and the patrol level in terms of getting firearms off the street, and as well as, investigative strategies in terms of, trying to target those who we believe to be responsible for some of the more repetitive issues that take place.
Chief, I hear from callers on this program, and I know Todd does as well, that we hear the initial incident. We hear that there was a shooting on X Street at whatever time, that there was no threat to the public, and that it was a targeted shooting, wasn't a random act. And then they say the level of communication starts to drop off, and I can appreciate that these are under investigation, and you don't want to sort of tip your hand, but are you happy with the way that HRP and the level of communication that the department has with the public?
Again, I think you have to find a balance between, providing what information that you can give in relation to ongoing investigations. Certainly, I don't know if you'll ever get to the place where you can provide all the information sometimes that you'd like to give in relation to some of these things. So in terms of, and that's always something, that we're discussing, considering about, what can we bring forward and what we can't. I know certainly one of the things that we certainly wish to impress upon folks is in terms of we know there's information in the community, and in terms of, we certainly implore people to come forward that would help them bring into a successful resolution of these matters.
Chief, switching gears a little bit here, I've listened to many stories even in the last 2 weeks. Here on the program of people walking into the NSLC stores, loading up a cart and just walking out very brazenly. It seems that people have become emboldened as of late because they know there's very little risk of getting prosecuted through this. Are police investigating each of these crimes?
Oh, certainly. We deal with several NSLC thefts and retail thefts in general in terms of all on a regular basis. I get regularly updated on some of those issues in terms of, but yes, there certainly has been a rise in retail theft across the board, across the country. And we see when I talk to my colleagues across the country, there have been rises in retail thefts. And, it's certainly something that we're mindful of, and we want to be, we want to be involved in some of the discussions about how to deal with some of those.
Some of the people that I've spoken to on this, Chief, think that and say and believe that this is an organized effort, that organized crime is playing a role in this. Are you looking at this from a more organized crime perspective, or is this just retail crime?
Well, I think it's difficult to put any of these instances in one bucket. I know we certainly saw, certainly over the holidays, where we had been involved in some significant retail theft investigations that were reported on, that they were certainly more organized in nature in terms of the methods and the amount of product that was taken. But at the same time, there's also those who are I would say less organized in terms but are still prolific in terms of dealing with dealing with thefts. And again, it is a growing problem that we recognize, and one I think that has been recognized across the nation as something that we all kind of have to put our minds to, including the retail sector, in terms of because they have some responsibility to coming up with the solutions to these issues as well.
Not to belittle the point, Chief, but I think it was yesterday or the day before I took a call from a shop owner on Spring Garden. He calls all the time, telling me that he's had repeated theft from his business. He says he has all of the gadgets. He's got photos. He's got video of the crimes. He says he reports it to police, and then more often than not, police don't even to show up to take a report. Why is that happening?
I obviously can't speak to that specifically.
Sure.
In terms of, I can tell you that I was just reading correspondence from the Spring Garden Road Business Association just this week about praising the officers' efforts in that area and dealing with some of these issues. All I can suggest is that certainly that in that particular case, in terms of reach out with our divisional commander and who's very in tune to that area, and we'll attempt to address whatever the deficiencies are. But certainly, our expectations would be that that we deal and we investigate those matters.
Last subject area, Chief. The province consulting now on road safety issues right across the province. They're talking to governments. They're talking to police agencies. At least one HRM councillor says that he hopes to see photo radar as part of that discussion. What are your thoughts on photo radar and red light cameras as enforcement tools in HRM?
Yeah, I think we've been on record for quite some time, and this has been a long-going discussion.
Right.
I remember having this discussion probably over 10 years ago. In terms of we certainly support any tool that's in place that will help reduce traffic fatalities or traffic concerns, and certainly. And it's more than just police efforts in terms of which can be very resource intensive, but we certainly look forward to another tool in the toolbox and dealing with some of those issues and red light cameras or speed cameras are some of those. They're obviously prevalent across the country, and we think that they may be a good addition to deal with some of those issues.
Does HRP do traffic enforcement now? And the reason I ask that is I hear from people that say they don't see a lot of people getting caught in radar traps these days.
Oh, we certainly continue to do traffic enforcement. I report on that every month when I go to the Board of Police Commissioners. The reality is, you're not going to get everyone that's out there doing traffic infractions, but certainly, we have a traffic unit that's out there doing the best that they can, and in terms of we'll continue to do so.
And Chief, last question: you received an increase in your budget this budget cycle around. Looking to add some more officers. When you get that complement into your strength, do you have enough boots on the ground now?
Well, actually, in my budget this year, I didn't ask for any new officers.
Okay.
I asked for civilian support to support some of the officers in terms of we have a long-term strategy around staffing. Certainly, staffing is a priority of mine. I have a recruit class that actually is out on the streets right now that will graduate in a few months, and we're looking at running up another recruit class shortly thereafter. So clearly, getting boots on the street is a priority to me, and it's something that's very important.
Chief, I appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate you as well. Have a good Friday and a good weekend, and to all your listeners in Collins, same to them.
Chief Don MacLean, appreciate it.
Take care.
That's the Chief of Halifax Regional Police, Don MacLean. We're going to stop. We're going to take another break. I know there's lots to digest in that interview, and I'm sure that you'll want to comment on it when we open up the telephone lines after 11 o'clock today. The show continues, of course. We're going to get an update on what's happening in the news. On the other side of it, our weekly chat with our good friend from Summa Strategies and Abacus Data, Tim Powers. The federal campaign continues. We're into, day 20 now, and we're getting down to the last few appearances, the last few stops, the last few promises when it comes to the federal election campaign. We'll get some thoughts from Tim when we return. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders, back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Dan Aalders along with you here on the Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. The federal election campaign continues. Donald Trump in the news almost hourly with tariffs, no tariffs, pause tariffs, tariffs. It's almost like a Brady Bunch episode, isn't it, Tim Powers?
Except the Brady Bunch, there was more comedy. We're not getting enough comedy, Dan, in all of this. Although you could laugh, I suppose, and then weep at how Trump changes his mind and his language. His language is always entertaining when it's not offensive.
Right, and if it's coherent, because most of the time, I literally watched the news conference yesterday and the day before with pen and paper, trying to find that nugget that is the news that's coming out, and wow, you've been involved in politics a long time, Tim, longer than I.
Well, you just called me old, Dan.
I think
Jeez,
I did.
That's nice on a Friday, okay.
But that being said, right, clarity in your messaging is like politics 101, is it not?
It is, but I think, look, I think I've said this to you before, certainly said it to the other guy when he shows up for work, that guy. Trump is a reality TV star on the biggest reality TV show right now called President of the USA, Donald Trump. And his language is very reminiscent of his time when he was on TV. Like, he's all over the place. I'm not an expert in mental health and wellness, nor are you, but at some point you do have to wonder about his cogency, to be polite. There were criticisms of Biden for being, not awake or not alert and slipping a little bit mentally. I don't think it's unfair to ask if, Donald Trump is having that happen while he's still playing out the barnstorming proprietor of a reality television show.
Pierre Poilievre yesterday on the campaign trail, took President Trump to task for not, taking the tariff off of Canada when he announced his 90-day pause. Do you think that that we know that the Conservatives have struggled with this ballot box question, trying to make inroads on it? Do you think that that's a change in tactic, that he takes a direct aim at the president?
I think so, but I don't, whether it was Pierre or Mark Carney or any Canadian leader, I'm not sure that's making Donald Trump quiver, but that's not the point to your question. I think Pierre and his team are starting to realize that Trump is the ballot question. Look, again today, Mark Carney stepping off the campaign trail to go back into the prime minister's role. And while some may call that a bit cynical because it's the third time it's happened during the campaign, others probably won't care whether it's cynical or not because they want to know that their leaders are working on trying to do something here. How much they can do, we'll never actually know, but they have to be seen to be trying something. So both Pierre Poilievre's comments, Mark Carney returning to Ottawa to chair a cabinet committee meeting are all part and parcel of showing Canadians that their leaders are on the job.
3 different polls I think I've seen flash across the TV screen this morning since I started the show 37 minutes ago. There are a lot of polls out there, and I know that polls are your thing. That being said, I've seen different numbers on all 3 of them, but they're kind of all trending towards that 6-point gap between the Liberals and the Conservatives as we roll into day 20. Is that kind of where you're seeing it?
Yeah, I saw those Nanos numbers I think you're talking about that just came out. Nick's put them out every morning. I think we released some on Wednesday that had a 6-point gap. Leger earlier in the week had an 8-point gap. Yeah, so it's I would say that's right, Dan, that right now it's a 6 to 8-point gap depending on polling company as we go into the weekend and next week with the debates, and that's could be an important week. Well, that's to be determined.
Does the debate matter?
Yeah, look, I know you're old enough to know this one, yeah. Dan. The only one that did in our living memory is 1984. Yes. Yeah. And there have been others that have had momentary impacts. Look, interestingly, on the French debate, which could be really fascinating, it's the Montreal Canadiens' last home game that night. Now, They may have officially clinched a playoff spot by then, but if they haven't, who do you think Quebecers are going to be watching?
Right? That's just bad timing right there.
Yeah, so that may be a benefit to Mark Carney or not, given his French is the weakest of all of them. And on the English debate, yeah, maybe more people tune in because of the Trump effect and want to see and hear more from every one of the leaders around that. Or maybe Trump does something on that day. I mean, he's basically done something every week of the campaign. So, and it's also the Thursday of the long Easter weekend, right? So there's some pressures there to see how many people will engage if they're not on the road or they're not, busy doing things related to the Easter weekend. So it could matter, but there's a few already built-in encumbrances around those two debates.
With all of the noise out of the United States, and I think I asked you this question last week, but it seems that we're getting more noise just about every day from the United States. Is it like Canadians seem to be more focused on what the president of the United States is saying than the candidates in the political campaign are saying, and that must be difficult, particularly if you're trying to make up ground in sagging polls.
Well, just look at our region, right? Atlantic Canada, the huge switch in all the polls. You'll remember, even before Christmas, I think the Conservatives in Atlantic Canada had 20-odd point lead until then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau resigned. And again, I'll just go anecdotally. I've been home twice since the election started, and both occasions in Newfoundland and Labrador, Trump is first. And not a lot about the election as a secondary issue other than the question that seems to be the one the Liberals have wanted, and they have gotten, who's best to lead. And for a variety of reasons, Mark Carney, according to all the data, continues to lead there. Maybe that improves for Poilievre next week, but it's all Trump all the time because it's real. I don't know if you saw that story yesterday. I mean, how more real can you get than this story? And the story was the president of Amazon saying, hey, guess what? People who use Amazon, products are going to get more expensive. Well, why is that? Because as you know, a lot of the products that people buy on Amazon are sourced in or built in or come from China. And people are feeling the effects of tariffs already, or potential tariffs. I mean, we don't have the auto industry in our part of the world, but we do have fish industry, and there's concerns about the fishery. There's concerns about agriculture. So it's just tariffs have become the new carbon tax. And by that, I mean the carbon tax, Poilievre effectively made the argument, you see it and you feel it. Tariffs are the you see it and you feel it at the moment, and that goes back to Trump.
The Preston Manning effect, I've been calling it, caused a stir earlier with an op-ed saying that a vote for a Liberal government is a vote for Western separating. That being said, new data, I saw heard polls today saying that Western Canada is okay. They're not wanting to separate. Is that something that hurts or harms the Poilievre campaign?
Probably harms it a little bit, though, to make sure people understand. Poilievre said he didn't agree with Preston Manning. But Daniel Smith, the Premier of Alberta, and Preston Manning sort of taking their own adventures during this campaign and bringing them on the road nationally through different means have not arguably been helpful to Pierre Poilievre. And the point of Mr. Manning, look, we in Atlantic Canada, we sometimes feel like we don't get a fair shake, but who goes to Alberta and puts out forest fires? Who runs their energy industry? Hey, it's Atlantic Canadians. Yeah, we'd like to do better too, Western Canada. I don't think, because the thing that irked me, sorry, you got me going now, Dan, about Mr. Manning's op-ed was it was up to us in Atlantic Canada and Central Canada not to elect the Liberals. Really? I don't know about that. How about looking what we do for you when you ask in times of need? We're there. We're good citizens. We all have issues, but suck it up.
I know it wasn't Preston Manning, but it was another Conservative Prime Minister that had something to say about Atlantic Canada and a culture of defeat at one point, did he not?
I think that was a guy who became the Prime Minister, but
right.
for a long time, he had a lot of trouble, as you know, getting traction in Atlantic Canada. It wasn't really until there was unification with the Conservatives, and he had people like Peter MacKay lending credibility to the Conservative Party in Atlantic Canada that got past that moment. But yeah, people remember this stuff, and not helpful.
We're getting into the last little bit of the campaign. You mentioned the debates. I saw, I think it was an Angus Reid poll out that said that, the votes solidifying on between the two parties. I think that 60 some odd % of Liberals say that they're no matter what they're going to vote, and I think that it's close to the same in the Conservative realm. There's not that much undecided out there left, Tim. Are we gonna see a big shift in the last days of the campaign, or are we already just really waiting till the finish line?
Ask me. I'll reserve the right to answer that next week. Oh no, Todd's back next week, but I'll answer it now and say this, Dan. That there's still time for something to happen. There still could be an event, a surprise, but right now, it's not just that the data is solidifying for those who have identified the parties they're going to vote with. You're now starting to see polls that show thinking, the Liberals are going to win the election, and those numbers are going higher. It's kind of like a preordained thing when that all sets in there. So it's hard to undo it when it gets a bit more cemented. The Conservatives, I think, are hoping that their vote is more solid, so that turnout becomes a thing that matters. But it's interesting, right, because we've had a flip. 55 plus, usually a hardcore vote for Conservatives. All Liberals, they turn up. Younger voters, usually with the Liberals, with the Conservatives. Will they turn up? There are more of them in the 18 to 55 category than in the 55 plus category. But the Conservatives are going to need a massive turnout among that group if they are going to undo what appears to be happening right now.
Tim, a pleasure, and Todd will chat with you next week.
Well, you know what? I'm going to put a rider in my contract that I don't have with Rogers that I want Dan half the time too. I think we've got to split the love, all right, buddy?
Is that like a custody arrangement?
Yeah, I like that, a custody arrangement. I get two of you as my radio parents. Poor you. I'm a wild child. Thank you.
No problem, child. Tim, I appreciate it.
Take care, buddy. Bye.
That is our friend Tim Powers. You can hear him on VOCM. You can see him all the time on Power and Politics. And, of course, he works for Summa Strategies and Abacus Data. We're going to stop down and take a break. On the other side of it, we've focused on all kinds of different aspects of the economy when it comes to these tariffs. What's happening in the real estate market? We're going to connect up with a broker from Remax Nova. That's Ryan Hartlen. When we come back, you're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. I don't know if you were listening to the program yesterday when we had a conversation with the CEO over there at the East Coast Credit Union. Ken Shea was in the studio. And if you missed that interview, I highly recommend that you go onto our website and check out yesterday's edition of the show, because to be quite honest, I was one of those investors that was pretty nervous with all the swings and the, as I've been calling it for weeks now, the crazy out of the White House and its impact on the markets. And Ken, as he usually does when I get a little antsy, was very reassuring and gave some really great advice in that interview about what to do if you're worried about your investments or depending on where you are in your work cycle, on what to do. So I highly recommend you go back and listen to that. That being said, when we start talking about those finances and those type of things, obviously the biggest financial decision you'll ever make in your life is buying that house, and obviously tariffs and election campaigns and Bank of Canada interest rates, all of that stuff has pressure on the mortgage market and on the real estate market. And we decided to reach out to a local realtor to get an idea of what's going on out there. And we're very pleased to welcome to the show from Remax Nova, Ryan Hartlen. Ryan, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
First question, as I ask every time that we have somebody in the real estate business on the air, is how's the market? So how's the market?
Well, we're seeing definitely signs of our typical spring market. This is generally the busiest time of the year for written sales, and that's just usually a product of a few things. People coming out of the winter, and the weather starting to free up a little bit, and just people feeling more in the mood. So we're definitely seeing aspects of that, but there's certainly some uncertainty in the marketplace given some of the things you guys have been talking about there for sure.
Ryan, tariffs, obviously, the stock market and people's savings, it will have an impact on decisions to purchase homes, at least in the short term, will it not?
Yeah, no doubt, and we're seeing that. It's obviously the U.S. Policies coming out of there right now are hard to track and just hard to predict, and so we've got people that would normally, be in the market that are sort of sitting there waiting, maybe buyers that are potentially going to be affected by tariffs or they're being affected by some of the stock market volatility rather for savings, using their down payment, that kind of thing. So it's, we've still got a lot of positives here locally in the market, and we're not completely susceptible to all of those things directly. We've got a lot of insulation, a lot of positives around this, but there's still a lot of people that are affected by it. So there's a lot of patience and a lot of wait and see interest rates, that kind of thing as well.
We're hearing a lot of promises on the campaign trail, the federal campaign trail, from the party leaders with regards to housing. Obviously, housing and affordability have been almost at the top of the agenda when it comes to this campaign. What are you hearing from people in the market? Are they keeping an eye on that and perhaps waiting to see what or who forms government before they make a decision?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly seeing there's, historically over the last couple of years, there's been this increasing pent-up demand, from people who were, even throughout the pandemic, unsuccessful in buying properties. The pricing was outpacing their ability to save and that sort of thing. And that mixed with a fairly significant immigration boom over the last number of years, we do have some pent-up demand for buyers. However, again, it's the supply is just not there. It's still a slight seller's market in the city here, and so we just don't have the amount of inventory to probably fulfill the buyer pool for the next couple of years, probably even. But so the government's obviously municipal and provincial and federal have all been working on trying to improve those, and there's obviously a lot of debate on how you can best do that and accommodate that. It's a big process. It's not something that happens overnight, obviously, but I do think that that's a key, driver for people's votes this year, and trying to make it affordable, especially for young people, first-time buyers trying to get into the market. It's a tough situation to be in.
Ryan, interest rates obviously are a topic of discussion as well, with the market's volatility and perhaps the R word, as I've been calling it, being bandied about with recession. The Bank of Canada, there's been lots of rumors that they're looking to drop rates again. That could be good news for the real estate market as money gets cheaper.
Yeah, it is. And there's an announcement coming next week, I guess it would be the 16th, right? So, I think a lot of people are banking on either a hold as is or a slight drop. And so I think given some of the uncertainty and maybe the more increased pressure on inflation or the R word, as you said, the more likely it'll be that'll be a reduction. And certainly that is a good thing for people who are, trying to get into the market. It actually, makes it directly cheaper to afford a home. And especially those two that are refinancing, because the other thing too is we've got a number of people who, bought during the, while those rates were really, really low over the last few years, and they're going to have renewals coming up and that sort of thing as well. So, that's one of the impacts on the inventory side of things over the next, year, 2026, 2027, as some of those renewals come up. It'll be very, very important to watch the interest rates to see where they are compared to, where those people got in when they first bought.
You mentioned housing stock levels. What are they like within HRM? Are there homes available in sort of all the levels of affordability, or is the more expensive homes sort of overrepresenting what's available out there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's pretty common, obviously, now to see properties that are, well above the, $500,000-$600,000 range. Average prices here are in HRM are usually sitting right around $575 right now, close to $600 in some places. And so anything below that, certainly anything below that $500,000 price point is usually a pretty sought after property and usually has a lot of demand for it. While, properties that are up, past that $600,000-$700,000 range, there's a little bit more time on market for those. The demand and the affordability wanes off a little bit for those price points.
How about single-family home starts? Are we building houses?
Yeah, we are. There's lots of new construction happening and lots of new developments, which is great. It's just, again, it's one of those things where we were sort of building into a vacuum, and arguably still are. So we're still trying to catch up with some of the demand from the past few years, but certainly some segments of the market, in the core HRM, it's getting hard to find land to build. So we're starting to see some of those, developments, pushed outside the city a little bit more. And that's pretty natural as well.
Ryan, appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks again.
That is Ryan Hartlen, a broker with Remax Nova. 575 and above is kind of where we're looking. Anything under that, as Ryan said, is a well sought after commodity these days. As we look to see what affordability really means as we move into this election and through this election campaign, and of course everybody keeping an eye on what's happening with the savings that they have to make that down payment, or perhaps what the mortgage markets are going to do moving forward. I will say that coming up around 12:15 today, in hour number 3, we'll have a conversation with Clinton Wilkins as we tee up another edition of Mortgage 101. And I know that Todd and Clinton are going to focus this month on the volatile world that we're in. So if you're in the mortgage market looking to refinance your mortgage market, you might want to stick around for hour number 3, and most definitely tune in on the weekends to listen to Mortgage 101 this week. There's a lot of valuable information in there. We're going to stop, take a break. Open hours on the other side. The line's now open. 902-405-6000. The Friday free for all is next. Welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show, the fabulous Friday edition of the program. It's after the news in hour number 2, and that means it's time for the Friday free-for-all. This is where you get to lead the conversation. I will try, with an emphasis on try, to keep my big trap shut, within reason, of course. Let's see where the conversation goes. There's an awful lot that happened this week. I'm sure there's an awful lot to talk about. The line's completely open right now, 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind, be it something that we talked about this week, something that we didn't talk about this week, or something that you just want to get off your chest. Think of it a way to free yourself of what's bothering you as we head into the weekend. Again, the number is 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000 as we wait for Vanessa to get the callers on the line. I don't know if you heard our conversation a little bit earlier today with the chief of Halifax Regional Police. Don MacLean was our guest. Said that he wouldn't characterize the rise in violence in Halifax as a gang war. He did say that the shooting incidents as of late have been non-random in nature and targeted, but wouldn't go as far to say that there's a gang war going on in the city, and did say that the HRP had taken a number of guns off the street in just the last week or 10 days or so. So I'm interested to see what you think about that. Again, 902-405-6000 is the number. Just saw some recent polling as well on the federal election campaign, showing that Mark Carney has about a 6-point lead as we roll through. I think we're in day 20 now, right? We're not that more days to go. We're getting close to the end. Of course, 2 big events happening next week that I think a few Canadians, perhaps a lot of Canadians, are waiting to see, and that, of course, is the official debates. The English language debate, the French language debate, and I don't know how many people hold on and wait to make their decision that late into a federal campaign to see how the leaders perform in the debate. I know some do, and people that I've spoken to say they're waiting to see how each of the federal candidates perform in the debates, both in English and in French. and will make their decision after that. Have you already made your decision? Are you we talked to people yesterday here on the program that had already voted. So obviously made their decision very early on in the campaign. We hear from political people all the time. We hear from pundits, and we hear from those that follow politics very closely that campaigns matter. But we haven't seen a big shift in popular opinion on, and I know polls are polls, in some time. And we will maybe see a shift after the election campaign happens, but we'll do our very best to see how that goes. That being said, do campaigns really matter? Or was your mind made up as you were heading into this campaign? And this campaign, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest was probably, or is probably, the most unique campaign that I've ever followed. And I haven't followed them all, obviously, but I've been doing this for some time. And this campaign, with the pressure of what's happening from south of the border with regards to tariffs on Canada, tariffs around the world, the stock markets, all of the crazy that's coming out of the United States has certainly impacted the campaign here. And I don't remember a federal campaign that has been quite like this one. Normally, there's a couple of domestic issues that dominate, and I know that there are some domestic issues that are dominating in the campaign. But as Tim Powers told us earlier in the program, the Trump question has been the ballot box question since the writ was dropped on this campaign, and it has really cast a shadow over the rest of the announcements. Not to suggest that any of those announcements were unimportant, but it really has dogged the campaign from its outset, even before it happened. I mean, it was during the Liberal leadership campaign was dogged by that question, and I don't think that's going anywhere. 902-405-6000 is the number. 902-405-6000. It is the open hour. It's your chance to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, and we're just waiting some calls here. If you want to get in and get on quick, this is a perfect opportunity to do so. We talked about real estate, the market. 575,000 it seems to be the sort of tipping point with regards to houses in HRM. That number's huge. Just think about it. If you're a young person and you're looking to buy your first home, right? Getting a down payment for a $575,000 house. I know it's been addressed as part of the political campaigns, but holy smokes, that's a lot of money. And I will suggest that there's a significant portion of the population here in HRM that just probably can't even go to a bank and get a mortgage for that. And that's where we're at. It's affordability has kind of been shoved down, I think, because of the Trump campaign. But I think it's still a massive issue here. And I know that there are some on the political hustings that are looking at different ways to try and make housing more affordable. I know Pierre Poilievre made a bunch of announcements on that over the last couple of days, talking about knocking sales tax off new or HST or GST, I guess, off of new home builds, and trying to get some rebating done on development fees. I know Mark Carney's talking about building all kinds of housing, these flat packs homes, but housing really is I think it has to go a long way to make it affordable. And then that always brings in the question, what exactly is affordable? Anyway, phones are starting to light up now, so let's see if we can grab a few calls before the break, and then we welcome Joe to the show. Joe, how are you?
Dan, what's up?
Nothing. What's on your mind?
Well, it can't be nothing because you're here with everybody. So
there's a lot there, but it's focusing on Friday right now.
Yeah, right on. We're a couple of hours away.
You got it. What's on your mind?
I wanted to ask you, and I hope that you'd have some listeners who would listen to this. how does Donald Trump keep his hair so perfect?
I think that if I can answer that question, Joe, I think that I would be a very rich man. I don't know. It's
Holy smokes!
right.
And how does he say? Like, how does he stay so orange, and his lips are white?
It's an active modern miracle of science, Joe. That's all I'll say about that.
That's pretty much all I have to say.
Appreciate
about
the
Donald
levity
Trump.
on a Friday, my friend.
I just want to make some people laugh,
Right.
and those are the things I laugh about. Like, I mean, everything else is perfect with him, but man, I mean, you know what? The image is more important than the message, I guess.
I think you're onto exactly what Donald Trump is, Joe. It's more about it's more about what it looks like rather than the substance, right?
Yeah, no, the substance is not there.
Joe, have a fantastic weekend, sir.
All right. Thanks very much, Dan. And you're doing awesome, dude.
Thanks,
I
man.
love you.
All right. Take care. 902-405-6000. 902-405-6000. Was it Jimmy Fallon? Or was it one of the other late night hosts? This was 45. This was back in the run up to his first term. I think that he actually put his hands into Donald Trump's hair. And it, like, everybody kind of thought that at that point that it was, maybe not his. But, like, Jimmy Fallon, he moved it around. So, and it didn't go anywhere. So either it was really rooted or it really is his. But what and how his hairstyle goes, I don't know. As I understand it, Donald Trump is getting ready to undergo a physical today. It's been put off since you're supposed to get that right when you walk into the office, but he's put it off because he's been a little busy messing with the world economy. That all being said, something I didn't think about and something I'd like you to think about before we head into the break, and we'll get to more calls on the other side of it, is that Donald Trump is the oldest person to be sworn in as president. Just think about that and all of the Sleepy Joe comments. Not to suggest that Donald Trump is sleepy, because he certainly is not. But he is certainly in an advanced age, we'll say. Going to stop and take the break. Friday Free For All continues on the other side. There's a few lines, 902-405-6000 if you want to get on. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in minutes.
Thanks.
All right, we're back. It's Friday. As one of the people that used to occupy this studio, and it's named after the immortal Rick Howell used to say on Fridays, yeehaw. And I think I can put an exclamation point on that one. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. The Friday Free For All. This is your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. Great way to wrap up the week and get it off your chest as we head into the weekend. Again, there's a number of open lines if you want to get on and join the show. 902-405-6000. We welcome James to the air. James, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Federal election.
Yep.
And I know a lot of the listeners, or I believe a lot of the listeners would live in the Halifax riding, Peninsular Halifax, and et cetera.
Yep.
So there's been so much attention in the media about the national level swing from the Conservatives to the Liberals, perhaps due to the Trump factor. It's been dominating the airwaves. Now it's the ballot question is Trump, so to speak, or how to deal with tariffs. I want to put in a plug that in the Halifax riding specifically, urban Halifax, and this is my opinion, of course,
sure,
the Conservatives are not a factor. And so you don't have to, if you don't want to vote for Poilievre, you can vote your heart. You don't have to go for this strategic voting pitch. And I recognize that that's a only partially hidden partisan comment, but there you go.
Fair enough. No, I think Halifax, the riding of Halifax, is going to be very competitive as we head into election night. I think that there's going to be a two-way battle between the NDP candidate and Lisa Roberts and the Liberal candidate, being that this was it was Andy Fillmore's riding, right? So it was a Liberal riding in the past. So and Laurie Turnbull, our political scientist, on was it Wednesday that we talked to her, said the very same thing, that this riding is certainly in play.
Of course, Halifax was a NDP bastion for Alexa
Megan
McDonough
Leslie and Alexa McDonough. The list goes on, right?
So it will be very interesting to watch, and yes, I guess I'm glad that the experts and political scientists would say the same thing. That and I think you mentioned earlier, campaigns matter, and political people would say ground game matters.
100%.
Knocking on the doors, putting up the signs,
Absolutely. Hey, James, I appreciate it. Have a fantastic weekend.
Same to you. Thank you.
902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000. This riding is going to be in play, I think. And from what I understand, talking to those that are smarter when it comes to politics than I, that Chester St. Margaret's also going to be in play. It'll be another two-way battle there. We saw the NDP candidate walk away from the campaign this week. So really a two-horse race there between the conservative incumbent and the Liberal challenger. I think that will be one to watch as we get into or closer to the election and into election night. I've spent some time in the riding of Chester St. Margaret's as of late, and just based on and you all know my feeling on election signs. That being said, based on the sign war that's happening in those areas, I'm seeing that it's going to be very close as it moves forward. What the polling says and what really happens are two different things. Let's welcome Mark to the program. Mark, how are you?
I'm great. It's Friday. Yeehaw.
Yeah, yeehaw.
As Rick, the immortal Rick, would say. So I'm going to follow up with James. Just going to really agree with him. It was a great call. Campaigns absolutely matter. And, I've worked on some over the years. I do have a political science degree. I'm not a political scientist, but anyway, many eons ago, that's what I studied and got my degree. GOTV, get out the vote.
Yep.
Right. That's what we would always hammer over and over and over again. And for, people of my vintage, the first campaign that I followed was Bill Clinton versus George H.W. Bush. And Bush was ahead in the polls. I know it's America, but Bush was ahead by like 25%. It's the biggest upset in American electoral history, probably. Maybe Trump beating Hillary because he was at like 5% when he entered the race. A bit different, of course. I don't think Halifax has gone conservative since 1984 or 88. So it's just one of those things, right? So I voted for Mark Boudreau, but he's not going to win. Sorry, Mark. It's basically impossible in that riding to win. I wish that Trudeau had kept his promise. Proportional representation, changing the electoral system, but he found out, and they found out that it was the system at the time favored the Liberals. So they were like, "Yeah, we looked into it, and we're just going to keep it."
My thoughts on that, Mark, is that the first past the post system favors the government of the day, right? So
yes, of course,
and you have to be elected in order to make the change, and a government that's elected is not going to make that change, right? So it's really a catch-22.
No, and I 100% agree, and it's. One of the first, if not the first paper I wrote in first school was on mixed member proportional. They do it really well in some countries. Holland is probably the best example of that. In Europe, first past the post is, besides, even France does runoffs. I know these are different systems. But this Westminster system, God love it, but it needs to change. And I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Have a fantastic weekend, Mark.
You too.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Joanne Roberts in the studio earlier this week. She's got a book out, Storm the Ballot Box. I've got it right in front of me here. And she has an entire chapter on proportional representation. And in our interview, she said that, and she used to be the deputy leader of the Green Party, for those of you who don't know who I'm speaking of, she said that she wrote the article, but she knows that it won't change, and it won't change because of what I said is that in order to affect the change, you really have to be the government of the day, and you were elected through the first past the post system, and your fortunes are probably better that way once you're the incumbent, right? So will we ever see proportional representation in Canada? I don't know. Maybe. But it's going to take some serious political capital for somebody to do that. We have to stop and get an update on the news. Mark's going to update us on what's going on in the world. On the other side of it, the Friday free-for-all continues. Those who are on the line, hang on. We'll get to you, I promise. Those that are perhaps waiting by, then there's a couple of lines open. 902-405-6000 is the number. The Friday free-for-all continues after the break. Welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand, and it is the Friday Free-for-All Open Hour, your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. 902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000. Let's get back to the phones. And we welcome Paulette to the show. Paulette, how are you?
Hi, great. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Listen, there's something really playing on my mind.
Okay.
I know we got the election going on. That's very important.
Mm-hmm. But
this with China and Trump. China put 125% tariff on the states, and Trump put 145 on China. Now, if China backs down, this is just what I think.
Okay.
Trump is waiting for his call, China's call.
Mm-hmm.
It was on radio. If China backs down, this world is really going to be hurting. It really is, because then he's going to think, I got all the power. He already thinks he does, I think.
Yeah.
But he's going to think he's got all the power. Honestly, I hope people in the world realize they got to back China. Somebody got to stand up to Trump. And if he doesn't, then watch out what's going to happen with the tourists. Honestly, I truly believe that.
Paulette, I absolutely appreciate the call, and I think you're right. I think that if Trump comes out on top of the trade war with China, then he's going to direct his attention somewhere else, right?
Oh well, Canada's going to get it. You know that,
yeah.
Right? I mean, we got to really. China's asked, and I can't remember what country it was or whatever it was, asking them see if they would back him. I wish they would, because look, honestly, this is ridiculous. I got nothing against American people. It's Trump.
Paulette, have a fantastic weekend. I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. It is kind of a bit of a bizarre twist, right? That China, who has been an aggressive nation for many, many years, China that has a 25% tariff on our seafood, right? Obviously, a countermeasure to some tariffing that was going on over EVs. But is being portrayed, and Paulette's not alone in her thinking, as the good guy in this. What a world, right? 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Let's we welcome Ken to the show. Ken, how are you?
Good. How are you, Dan?
Good. What's on your mind today?
I think it was James was the caller there to say, oh, you don't have to vote for a conservative, and then you sort of backed him up saying, yeah, I think it's going to be a liberal NDP. I seriously hope you guys are wrong.
Okay.
Because like Kearney goes out and tells Daniel Smith, I'll repeal Bill C-69, which then he turned around and said no. So his wife gave him a little talking to, and now he's back to the green side. There will never be another pipeline. If you listen to him when he's talking, he's going, as long as the provinces do this and the indigenous people want us to do this, we'll set the pipelines. In other words, you're not going to have another pipeline going anywhere.
Ken,
right?
I missed
flourishing down in the U.S.
Sure, I missed the part about him having a conversation with his wife. How did that work?
Well, we'll just leave it at that. Look at her background. Research her background, and you'll know that he's not going to put in a single pipe.
That's your opinion that his wife convinced him. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to be
my
clear,
opinion.
right? Because, we have to be careful saying that that's been reported because it hasn't. It's your opinion.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And here's another one. Remember the guy out west that was on the Greyhound bus and he decapitated a guy and then started to eat him?
Yes.
He's on the streets right now.
Yeah.
So with their hug a thug, the same thing. The woman that just went in and shot up a bar in Brantford, she went in a month before that with a sword. Like, why is she even on the streets? And to give you something closer to home, right here, I had my window smashed a few years ago downtown Dartmouth here.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what the cop told me? He said, "We know who it is." He said, the guy's ripping off the churches and he's doing smashes in the cars. He said, there's no sense in arresting him because the judge is just going to let him go anyway.
Yeah,
so this is what the Liberal government has been giving us. And I mean, do you really need to look at the tents and everything around to say, yes, what a great job the Liberals have been doing. Let's give them another 4 years. Like, really, it's crazy. Tiny homes and a boost to CBC, that's a great platform to work on, And as far as the NDP goes, we lost one of our best NDP candidates out in Fall River when the sweep happened a few years ago. Remember?
Yep.
And a vote
Peter Stauffer,
for,
you're talking about, correct?
Singh. What's that?
You're talking about Peter Stauffer?
Yes, exactly.
Lower Sackville.
Right?
Yep.
The guy was great. So I mean, you can say, well, this one here is a good candidate, that one there's a good candidate. When it's a sweep, it's a sweep. And I think that's what it's going to be because everybody knows now Singh could have brought down Trudeau. It could have been a different government in there now, and he didn't. And all he was doing was looking after his pension.
Ken, have a fantastic weekend, sir.
You as well, Dan. Thank you.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Ken obviously is in on the conservative side and is happy with what he is hearing from Mr. Poilievre. In fact, repeating some of those campaign promises, and that's fantastic. That means the messaging is working, right? 902-405-6000 is the number. Where are we going next? Eric, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. Listen, Dan, I came across something. I've been watching this guy for the last year or so. His name is Mark Moss. Are you familiar with him?
No.
He's a financial analyst, and he's not the typical Wall Street guy with the three-piece suit. Anyways, he makes some very interesting comments. I just want to share this with you. He says that the tariffs are really a preliminary setup and that the end game is to restructure the money system in the world. So he gave the Chinese and the Russians and India and South Africa and so on and so forth want to go to a gold-backed system. And he says the Americans, they want to go to Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and stablecoin. If that's all the same, I don't know. And he says the other thing that they're wanting to get is a hold of the Americans, particularly is rare earth minerals, because the technologies with AI and everything moving forward is what they want to get a hold of, because the Americans don't really have a lot of natural resources in that regard, I guess.
Isn't he a big proponent of cryptocurrency, Mark Moss?
He could be. Yeah, I think so. And he talks about
by him saying that Trump wants to rework the way the money is wouldn't be a way to drive people to crypto and help support his strategy, would it?
Well, it may be. I'm just saying his summations I find interesting.
Sure.
The other point I just found it particularly interesting because who controls the currency controls the money. Who controls the money actually controls the markets in the world.
You got it.
I would think. So the other thing I find interesting when I hear people speak, the United States has, as you know, probably, it has an economic engine of $20 trillion a year. And they're getting, and I'm not taking anybody's side here, trust me, it's just an observation. And there's one trade deficit they have just with India and the European Union and Mexico is $918 billion a year. Now, I'm not submitting that Trump is correct in his methods, but the United States has to do something to equal out this trade because they're almost bankrupt. Like Dan, the financial experts are saying they're $36 trillion in debt, and in 8 years, the country will go bankrupt. So there goes that economic machine that a lot of the countries in the world are depending upon for their exports. just an observation. But I thought you might find Mark Moss interesting. That's why I brought it up.
Have a fantastic weekend, Eric.
Okay, bud.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. I haven't read Mark Moss, just did a quick search on him. Has a strategy that he pushes to make money in the cryptocurrency field. So for him to say that this is all a ploy to change the way that the financial markets work and the way that money works, I'll let you make your own decision on that. We're going to stop and we're going to take another break. But the good news is on the other side, the open hour continues. The Friday free-for-all right after the break. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. And very quickly, before we get back into the Friday free-for-all, got a traffic advisory from Halifax Regional Police. Officers are currently on the scene of a multi-vehicle collision in Dartmouth that they say is causing traffic delays in the area. The intersection of Highfield Park Drive and Victoria Road now closed to both vehicle and pedestrian traffic. Police say that they've got detours around to reroute the traffic, and they're asking the public to avoid the area and take some alternative routes if possible to avoid delays. So if you're traveling around in the Dartmouth area and you're heading towards an area of Highfield Park Drive and Victoria Road, that area is now closed because of a multi-vehicle collision, being asked to avoid the area if at all possible. That's my very best traffic report that I can do. 902-405-6000 is the number. Let's get back to the phones and welcome Colin to the show. Colin, how are you?
Hey, Dan. How's it going today?
Good. You?
Not too bad, man. Thanks. Just calling about a previous caller.
Yep.
I mean, essentially, she was talking about how we need to partner and the world should side with the Communist Party of China.
Isn't it terrible that we're pitting sides between the Americans and China these days? It's awful.
Absolutely wild. I mean, their record goes to show. I mean, look what they're doing to the Uyghur population. They're essentially a dictatorship. I cannot believe that people are wanting to side with China. Just calling to kind of raise some facts. People should take a little look at Dr. Jordan Peterson. He just posted a video last night. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long, quite lengthy, but he does a deep dive into Mark Carney and kind of some ties to China that he has. To be honest with you, if he gets elected, this will be the end of any infrastructure that is going to get built in our country. That man is literally chief CEO of Net Zero. You can look at all of his policies that he's had with the Bank of the United Kingdom, with the Bank of Canada, with his Brookfield asset groups. Just going to ramble another facts here for you, too. His modular homes that he wants to have and the design for those, that platform for the government. His company, Brookfield Assets, in 2021 just purchased a $5 billion share in a company that produces these modular homes. So tell me that's not a conflict of interest.
Well, Mark, Colin, I get it. But again, we're going down that route that I've been sort of pushing back against all week, that we're living in the world of speculation, right? Well, if he's going to get elected, he's going to do that. We don't know that, do we? Do we know that Brookfield's going to even get that contract?
You can look at his
no, Colin, answer the question. Do you think that Brookfield might not even get the contract because of that conflict of interest?
Well, man, that's a pretty high-ranking CEO in the company that's going to be running this country. I would go ahead and say yes, they're going to favor their own company, clearly.
Fair enough. That's your opinion.
Yeah, just like I said, if people could just go and just watch that Jordan Peterson video. It's pretty lengthy, but a little deep dive into Mark Carney there. And like I said, if he gets elected, hello to communism. Bye-bye.
Bye, Colin. And again, take Jordan Peterson as you will. I'm not going to comment on him today. It's the Friday free-for-all, and I'll leave it at that. 902-405-6000 is the number. Let's go back to the phones. We welcome Pete to the program. Pete, how are you?
Good, Dan. How are you?
Oh, it's Friday. We're almost there.
Well, the only reason I'm calling, my friend, is basically to talk about I'm hoping that people really do a little bit of critical analysis regarding the parties that want to get elected.
Okay.
And if they look at the past 9 years, they look at the things that have been done properly and the things that haven't been done properly. And I'm all for change. Change, I think, is a good thing. It's a part of our democratic institution that really helps revive people, helps revive society. And I think that if people do that critical analysis, will have a positive outcome no matter what happens.
That's clear thinking, Pete. Appreciate it.
No problem. You have a good day, Dan.
You too. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. We've got 4 or 5 minutes left. The lines are wide open if you want to get in, do one of those, as Rick used to call them, the quick hitter, and get it off your chest before we head into the next hour. Again, about 4 minutes left. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. I just got an email, and I know I don't read emails a lot, but this one comes from Mark. It says, your station's very liberal-leaning. In my opinion, you guys are not unbiased. I will dispute that and push back against that all the time. And I hear it all the time. And if I can, and I know Todd said this before, I can go back into my emails over the last 2 weeks that I've been sitting in this chair. I've been accused of being a left whack job. I've been accused of being a hardcore liberal. I've been accused of being a Poilievre supporter and a hardcore right-winger. So maybe I'm doing it right. Just saying. 902-405-6000. Where are we here? Bradley. Bradley, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Question for you. What was the first thing that we were always taught in school?
To not chew gum.
No, it's not to lie.
Right.
What was Mark Carney caught with yesterday?
Oh, I don't know. What do
in
you
a lie.
Okay.
So what he said to the Globe and Mail yesterday, or that the Globe and Mail was false when they said that when he was caught in a picture with the JCC, which is the China's Communist Party in Canada, they have a picture of Mark Carney with him, with the president of the JCC, and Mark Carney said, no, I've never met this guy. I have nothing to do with this guy. He says the Globe and Mail was wrong to publish this, but yet there's a picture of Mark Carney with the president.
Okay.
So how can he say that, oh, no, I've never met this guy, and now I've never spoken with this guy, and now a picture comes out and he's pictured and documented meeting this guy and talking with this guy. But everyone said, oh, no, Mark Carney would never lie.
I don't have an answer for that because I, to be honest, didn't know that happened. Appreciate you bringing it to our attention, though, Bradley.
You didn't hear about the Globe and Mail story yesterday?
No, did not.
Oh, that's weird.
Okay. Have a good one. Have a good weekend. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. Oh, where are we here? Let's go to Eve. Eve, how are you?
I'm good. You're doing a great job, Dan.
Thank you. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to mention that China holds a lot of the treasury bonds for the United States.
They do.
And I think they have the trump card.
No pun intended, of course.
Exactly. So things could get pretty dicey if they start cashing them in, and that was one of the reasons, well, it certainly appears that way anyway, that Trump put his 90-day thing in and started handing out 10% tariffs for the other ones.
Well, it's
other countries, and
I'll agree with you to a point, Eve. But if it was truly China, then he kind of did the exact opposite and increased the tariff, right? So. I think you're onto something there. No, Eve, I believe you're onto something there with the bond market and the treasury bills, and I think that other countries were starting to cash in theirs as well. And I think that Mr. Trump saw what was happening with that, right? And that was one of the reasons behind it. Anyway, Eve, appreciate the call. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Last word today goes to Dennis. Dennis, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you today?
Good. It's Friday.
That's right. It is Friday. I just wanted to call and talk about, yesterday you had a Jim called in and they're talking about firearms.
Yep.
And Jim has called in before, and I've said that when Jim says that most of the crimes being committed with firearms are legal firearms, he's wrong. And I've called him out on this before. There's no stats from StatsCan to even say that. And you have news articles from Ontario saying that most of the firearms are seized. I think it was 84% are illegal firearms that come over from the U.S. So these gun bans and everything that the Liberals have done, they just don't work. And that's why the Peel Regional Police and the Barrie Police and multiple police forces across the country are supporting the Conservatives because they know and they say that these gun bans and targeting law-abiding gun owners do not work, and they need to be tougher on the criminals themselves. So I just wanted to call and make that clear.
Sure. Dennis, I appreciate it, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
902-405-6000 is the number. Write that one down and put it in your phone and write it down on the... do people still have calendars by their phones anymore? Am I dating myself? Probably dating myself. Anyway, Todd is back on Monday. I know he's going to have a lot to talk about his time off, and I know he's going to want to be brought up to speed on what's going on. And very quickly, I know I don't read them, but this one just came in. Rob says only a lefty would dismiss the Globe and Mail story. I didn't dismiss it. I didn't see it. That's it. That's all I said. I'm going to miss the open hours. They are so much fun, and I really and truly do say that and truly do believe that. It really is the best hour of the show because I get a chance to hear from all of you. Going to stop and take a break. The show is going to continue after the news. After the update, we're going to dig into ticks. I hate ticks, and I know you do too. And maybe some new science will help us out this year as we head out into the forests of Nova Scotia. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm back right after the break. Welcome back and happy Friday afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It's getting closer. Each minute ticks away. We're closer to the finish line. We're almost at the weekend. And if you're like me, and particularly at this time of the year, although Mother Nature kind of threw us a curveball earlier this week with that white stuff that hit the ground that we just are all done with, you like to spend some of your off time, your leisure hours out in the woods of Nova Scotia. It's one of the great things about living in this province, and I am very much into that, and I spend a lot of time in the woods in and around HRM and in Lunenburg County and Antigonish County and those places, and one of the things that I'm trying, I should say, to get better at living with is the ongoing battle, I think is probably the right term, with ticks. I'm very forthright. I hate ticks. I don't know many people that like ticks. And they have proliferated in our world and are a thing now. And it's very rare that someone doesn't have experience with them. That being said, there's some fantastic research that's been going on into ticks and some of the ailments that are caused by these things. We know that there are tick-borne diseases out there like Lyme disease, and there are ticks that carry that here in Nova Scotia. There are also ticks that don't, but are creepy crawlies and make people's skin crawl. I'm getting all buggy just thinking about having these things. And one of the people that's doing some fantastic research on ticks is our next guest from Acadia University's chemistry department, Dr. Nicoletta Faraone. Dr. Nicoletta, how are you?
Hi, Todd. Thanks for having me.
I guess the first question is there isn't many people that I know of that like these things, but they're going to become a way of life now. They're going to be here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you're doing some research on ticks and have come up with something that I think is going to make a lot of people happy. And you found that lemongrass essential oil can repel these bugs.
Mm-hmm. Well, lemongrass essential oil has been known to be a very good pest repellent. And we've been working with lemongrass since 2017 together with a Nova Scotia company, Atlantic. In fact, lemongrass was originally used in their formulation, and we tested here at Acadia for efficacy. So in the most recent study we published, we decided to use lemongrass as a good example to investigate more the mechanism of action of repellency, because what we want to know is basically how a repellent works, so how ticks respond to repellent in general.
So what does it do? Is it all smell that bothers these things, or does it have a bigger, deeper chemical reaction to ticks?
So it's exactly what we are trying to understand more in details. So we know that when pests are sensing chemicals that are inducing certain repellency, the repellency can induce, we call it spatial repellency. So basically they smell it, they back off. But what we found also in our study, that exposing for a prolonged time a tick in this case to a lemongrass, to this repellent, what we found after that the tick was not able anymore to perceive any attractant, so any smell that they like, and they can help the tick to find a host. So we hypothesized that basically lemongrass as well as repellents may induce an inhibitory action. So they kind of mask the ability of ticks to smell attractant.
So not only does it repel the tick because of the smell, it prevents them from smelling in the future? Am I getting that right?
Yes, and we want to, this is something that we want to explore in the future. We don't know yet how long this inhibition will last. So it's something that can be really a good question to explore in the future.
As I understand it, ticks are almost blind. They don't use their eyes as a way to connect themselves with their host, I'll say.
Yes.
My experience with ticks in the field is that I'll brush against something and then they'll just catch a ride. If I have that oil on, will they let go? Is that how it works? Like they just want to get away from it?
So they can be instantly repelled, and this is one thing. Or if they somehow are stuck on your clothing while you're doing a hike, if they get potentially exposed for a longer time, they might get numb. They cannot smell anything anymore, and they will drop off later on.
Really? That's going to make a lot of people that I know very happy.
This is not, keep in mind that these were all experiments done in lab condition and not actually in the field. So these are just observations that we are doing, and they are giving us important hint to understand better how this can work in a real environment.
So are you using 100% lemongrass, or is it diluted with something? What kind of concentration are we looking at?
So essential oils in general and any type of chemicals, if it's used at concentration, a high concentration, or another recommended concentration, can be dangerous, right? So what we did was using different concentration of essential oils, in this case lemongrass, because we wanted to see also the dose response effect. So in case I wouldn't recommend to spray concentrated lemongrass.
Right. So is it like you mix it with water? Is that how you did it, or I guess I'm looking at the practical aspect of this. If we're going to develop this, obviously it has to be mixed with something.
Yes. So the things that we did in the lab, of course, are different because we formulate the essential, and this is described in the published study. We mix the essential oil in hexane, which is a chemical solvent, and this was done specifically for our study. Now, essential oils usually the one that you find in the market are usually sold diluted in water, and they have a surfactant, so it's like a soap component because essential oils are not miscible in water. So usually they're found in this way. But in the lab we use organic solvent for our study.
Are there any products out there that you know of that are already employing the use of this?
You mean lemongrass or essential oil in general?
Lemongrass.
So lemongrass, no, because I know that lemongrass is not an active ingredient registered through Health Canada. So there might be a product out there that they have essential oils, lemongrass, but they are not having the claim to be insect repellent. But I'm sure that there will be out there product that they have lemongrass in it.
Especially if it works, right?
Yeah.
I guess the end of you said that this is early on, and you're going to continue to study this, I would imagine, moving forward, right?
Yes. And one other important question that we want to further investigate is the impact of the pathogen that is in the tick, so the bacteria that they carry, because we did a study on non-infected ticks and ticks that were collected all around Nova Scotia that we, after analyzed for potential bacteria. In fact, we found several bacteria that were carrying, and one of those was the bacteria that cause Lyme disease.
Right.
Because it's been reported that infected ticks, they might be more resilient and they might respond differently to repellents and also to different environmental conditions. So some of the blackleg ticks that have a certain concentration of the bacteria, they resisted better to colder condition, or they were more aggressively searching for a host. Now, in our study specifically, we didn't see any differences between the infected and non-infected. However, we didn't do a quantitative analysis. So we just detected the presence of the pathogen. We didn't know how much of the pathogen was there. So something that I want to do in the future is quantify the pathogen and see if there is any correlation with the tick response to repellent and attractant, and what is the pathogen component in it.
Well, on behalf of the thousands of people out there that use the forests in Nova Scotia, thank you for researching this, and please keep us in the loop as you progress in your research.
I will. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That's Dr. Nicoletta Faraone of the Chemistry Department at Acadia University. Essential oil lemongrass. Apparently, ticks hate it. And it impacts them not only when it's on you, but maybe down the line they just can't smell, and then maybe they'll just go away, because I hate ticks. We're going to stop and take a break. On the other side of it, we've been talking about finances all week with the markets and with the tariffs. And what does this all mean for those that are out there that are looking to get a mortgage, one of the biggest debt that you're going to take on in your life? And those that maybe are on the cusp of refinancing their mortgage. When we talk mortgages on Todd Veinotte Show, we only talk to one expert, and that is Mortgage 101's Clinton Wilkins. He's going to be in the studio, and he's going to be here to answer our questions when we get back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand, back in minutes. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. This coming weekend, it is Mortgage 101 weekend, we call it around here. Clinton Wilkins and Todd Veinotte are going to sit down and bring you up to date on what's going on in the mortgage world and the real estate world. And in today's troubling economic times, this show, I think, is something you're going to want to listen to on Saturday and Sunday, and maybe listen to again on the replay on our website, because it's full of, I got a little bit of a preview of it. It's going to be full of really useful information given today's world and today's economy and today's crazy. And very pleased to welcome into the studio today Clinton Wilkins, our mortgage guru. Clinton, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Dan?
I guess that's the first question, man.
I'm doing good. I don't know if everybody else is doing good, though.
Right?
That's the real question.
You're dealing with this stuff every day. Mm-hmm. The market's doing what the markets are doing. People worrying about tariffs and recession. People worrying about losing their jobs. I guess how is the market now, mortgage-wise? Are people still buying houses?
It is so busy, Dan, because I think there is still a lot of pent-up demand. And even if we look back over the last 12 months, 24 months, rates are much lower than they were. But I'm going to come on here and be the bearer of bad news today. And normally I like to be the happiness coordinator. I can tell you fixed rates are increasing. And really, it's just due to what's going on in the market. Normally you think market's down, rates down. That's not necessarily the situation right now. And this is where it's very hard for consumers to understand. Retail investors like you and I, we're going to the stock market right now because everything's on sale. So we're trying to buy. But institutional investors like the banks, they're buying up 10-year bonds, for example, And that's what's tied to these fixed rates. So we're actually seeing fixed rates starting to increase. And I think, even today, lenders have been putting out new rate sheets that the rates are higher than they were even yesterday. So I think we're going to see fixed rates edge up a little bit until things kind of balance out in the U.S. I think once the markets renormalize a little bit, we'll get back to hopefully the rates continuing to decrease. What I'm really watching, Dan, is next week, the Bank of Canada announcement. We may be in a situation where the Bank of Canada lowers the key overnight rate. I really do think that's going to happen, which is strange to think. Bank of Canada is lowering the key overnight rate, but the fixed rates are increasing. So consumers really don't understand what's going on right now, and there's a lot of confusion. And I think even mental health of consumers has been so negatively impacted. You ask me, and I'm in this every day. I'm watching what's going on in the markets. I can't clearly tell you what's going on with tariffs because there's been so many changes. And that's just one thing. I can tell you, I know what's going on in the markets because I log in to my account and I see down, down, down.
Right.
Obviously, there has been a rally the last couple of days, which is good. But still so far down from even, a month or two ago. And it's confusing. It's really, really a confusing time. I think the rates are going to continue to go down. And hopefully this momentary blip on fixed rates going up is only short term. Hopefully we'll continue to see them go down. But that's why I think right now it's so important to get advice. And, I think when we're talking about mental health and finances, a lot of this is very closely tied together. And I think you hit the nail on the head. A mortgage is the biggest debt that consumers have. A house is the biggest purchase. They really need that expert advice. And we have, with pricing, it's really all over the place. And mortgage lending is a snapshot in time. So the rates today may be different from the rates tomorrow or the rates of yesterday. And that's where we have to put everything together. We have to look at, consumers' income and their assets and their credit and then make a plan. And that's where I think having a relationship is really important. I don't think we're ever going to be the lowest on the street because, we're a full service brokerage like what we do here in our office. But I think the advice is just so important right now. And consumers overall are more concerned right now with payment than they are with rate. All the rates are still high. Let's be real. They're high. I believe, though, they're going to continue to go down. And I think you need to figure out what the best solution is for you and your household today. And that solution may be different tomorrow. And that's what we always tell consumers. Let's get something approved and get a rate held that you're good with today. And if things improve between now and the funding date, we always can float the rate down. But at least we have something secured. And I think consumers that go with that mentality are going to be the best served right now, especially if we start seeing some of these fixed rates edge up. But I can tell you, popularity of a variable rate is likely going to be more popular as of next week, I suspect, because I think we're going to see the rates decrease.
There's some insight.
That's my teaser. That's my teaser.
Right. That being said, Clinton, those and I really truly feel bad for people that have been in the realm of having to renew their mortgage, and we went through COVID, and then we went through those high interest rates, and then the Bank of Canada raising rates, and now starting to lower, and now this. What are you recommending to those that are having their mortgage come up for renewal in the short term here in the next couple of months?
I really, really love a variable rate. I think all the listeners know that I'm super pro variable. Historically, borrowers do the best in a variable rate, but you need to be able to stomach it. Not everybody can stomach it. When the rates are going up, harder to stomach. When the rates are going down, everyone loves a variable rate.
Right.
But you need to be along for the ride and have the advice of someone like me to be able to help you manage that. A lot of consumers are doing a variable. I think really the smartest consumers are taking the variable as well, because you can always convert that variable into a fixed. And if you were to even break that variable rate mortgage early, you're only going to pay a penalty of 3 months of interest. There's other consumers that say, you know what, I can't stomach this. I need to have the stability of a fixed rate, and I'm willing to pay a little bit more to have that stability. I think a shorter term fix is the way to go. I think 3-year fix is great. Some consumers still want a 5-year, and there still are some decent rates out there on a 5-year fix. We may still see a few lenders with the 3.99 type rates, but I think we're going to see most of those rates be in the 4s now. Even going into next week when we see these increases really start to take hold on the fixed rates, I think low 4s is a very good rate, depending on if you're in a fixed rate or in a variable. And it's a lot better than it was 2 years ago. I think we need to remember that. We were doing a lot of mortgages in the 6s, 6, 6.25, 6.5. So things are better, they're just not in these COVID time rates. The rates from 5 years ago, don't exist. And, the rates in the ones and in the twos, they are just not available. And that's why those consumers are really trying to, ride out their mortgages until the end. But they're all coming up for renewal. And those consumers are the most worried, I think, because they were drunk on cheap money and the money's not so cheap anymore.
You mentioned your teaser for the Bank of Canada announcement next week. Long-term, Clinton, most people are suggesting that we're probably going to either see a hold or a decline in the overnight lending rate next week. What are you looking at moving in deeper into 2025? Do you think impossible to predict because of the unpredictability of what's happening in the United States, or do you think that we're going to see the Bank of Canada try to keep things moving by lowering rates?
They're going to keep things moving. Our economy is not the same as the U.S., and this is why we can't look to the U.S. on what's going on with the rates right now. We need to look on what's going on in Canada. So I think the Bank of Canada is going to continue to lower the key overnight rate. My prediction is we may see 75 basis points less between now and the end of the year. A lot is going to be driven by inflation and really what's going on with the GDP. How is our economy doing? We are basically in a recession situation right now, and that's why the Bank of Canada will lower the key overnight rate. But the two things that we need to look at is inflation. Even though we could be going to a recession, inflation may still be a situation. So it's hard to stay really inflation difficult. And also build up the economy. So the governor of the Bank of Canada is going to have a really hard time, I think, this year. And we're talking maybe a little bit about politics. Our current prime minister was the governor of the Bank of Canada. So he's, obviously helped Canada through some very challenging times, as well as the Bank of England, and now is leading our country. And I think it'll be very interesting, kind of the conversations between the PM's office and the governor of the Bank of Canada. So I'm certainly going to be here back on the air on Wednesday. And I assume we're going to have a lot to talk about probably for the Bank of Canada. And we're going to continue to keep an eye on things. But we have a really great show this weekend.
And that's Saturday, starts at 11 o'clock, and Sunday you'll hear it again. And as I mentioned off the preamble, you're going to want to tune into this one because there's a lot of anticipation, perhaps, of what's trepidation, maybe is a better word, in the markets. And Clinton and Todd are going to try and give you some good information to maybe ease some of those fears. Clinton, we're just about out of time. 11 o'clock tomorrow, 11 o'clock on Sunday. You can catch it on the repeat anytime.
That's right.
And we'll talk to you next week when the Bank of Canada makes its mind up.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll be back on the air on Wednesday, and hopefully we'll have some good news from the BOC.
Clinton Wilkins, Mortgage 101. Make sure you tune in. We're going to stop, get updated on the news on the other side of it. What's going to happen in the weather? Our weather specialist, Aalders Aalders, will be joining us. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes. Welcome back. In the final stretch of the Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. Hope you're having a fantastic time. Todd will be back on Monday, and I know he's looking forward to getting back into the chair and back into the swing of things, and we look forward to seeing Todd back here around the radio station. The weekend is almost upon us, and we know that many of us are looking at what Mother Nature has in store when it comes to the forecast and what we can expect this weekend. Let's go to our weather specialist. That would be Aalders Aalders. Aalders, sir, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fine. Let's put it on the record. What can we expect for the weekend?
Not too bad to start. I mean, I know at this time of year, a lot of people are looking for, nice, sunny, mild days. We're going to be a bit of middle of the road, I would say, in terms of temperatures, getting a bit warmer, but maybe not as warm as some people would like, especially after the snow earlier in the week. But Saturday, the pick in terms of dry conditions, some early morning sunshine, but overall cloud cover will be on the increase. 8 degrees the high, near normal for this time of year. Generally lighter east-southeast wind between 15 and 30. But then a chance of showers moving in Saturday night into Sunday, and for Sunday, some periods of rain showers and a bit cooler, 6 degrees. 5 on Monday with rain sticking around, gusty northerly winds. So we are heading back into that unsettled stretch of weather as we go for the second half of this weekend into early next week, and looks like generally the first half of next week will be unsettled too. A bit of a break from the wet weather likely into Tuesday, but then the possibility of more wet weather Tuesday night into Wednesday, but we do trend a bit warmer. So, I mean, that's the good news. No sign of snow in the forecast, which I think most people will be happy with.
You know, Alistair, we all blamed you for that snow, right?
Of course. I mean, you know, I always get the blame for the bad weather.
What was all that about? And I know that, in fact, I looked back at some photographs that I've taken over the years this week and the week previous as April rolls around, and it's not unusual for us to get a snowstorm at that time, this time of the year, but that one was a little bit hard to take.
Yeah, certainly, like you said, it's not uncommon for us to get snow in April. I think part of it is that we haven't been experiencing necessarily snowy Aprils, especially in recent years. In general, the trend for April snowfall has been decreasing. In a normal April between 1991 and 2020, the average April snowfall is about 16, 17 centimeters, and we did have from that 1-2 punch of snow between 10 and 15 centimeters for most of HRM. Some areas did get closer to 17 and 18 centimeters from both hits. So in general, we've been seeing less snowfall when in April's back in the 70s and 80s, you'd typically have 20 to 25 centimeters in a typical April. So the trend has been that Aprils are becoming less snowy, so I think it catches a few of us off guard. It's also, getting towards the middle of the month, and we think of, more April showers, more April showers than snow showers. But, certainly, we haven't had a great deal of, say, true mild weather, and it just coincided where the system was tracking offshore and we had some cooler air. I mean, it wasn't like it was overly cold. We were, hovering right at freezing +1 for much of the event, but the difference of 1 or 2 degrees is really important for these systems, whether they'll be all snow or all rain. And for the most part, we did see all snow. And these spring systems can be really tricky to forecast, because of the temperature aspect, because of the ground is warmer than it was a month ago. I mean, for the most part, a lot of this was melting on contact with, the streets and sidewalks. I know there was some slushy accumulations, especially as we went into that second shot of snowfall, but a lot of it was, on the vehicles and the grass. So it makes it difficult to predict how much it will accumulate, and that's just something that weather models really can't handle. They can't predict, well, I shouldn't say they can't predict how warm the ground temperature is, because there is modeling that tells you, what the estimated ground temperature is. But in terms of, a snowfall outlook, the model's just spitting out a ratio of, what it thinks it will be based on a standard, 10-to-1 ratio, which is, 10 centimeters melts into 1 centimeter of liquid, and you can't really go by that for every snowfall event. It really varies. So it just makes for a very tricky forecast, trying to juggle how much of it will melt and how much of it will accumulate. And when you get that steadier precipitation at this time of year, it can catch people off guard. It does end up accumulating a little more than maybe we would expect.
Alistair, I had the opportunity to get out into the woods of Nova Scotia last weekend before the snow came, and was pleasantly surprised at some of the water level on the river system that I was on. It wasn't, where I've seen in Aprils of past where it almost gets to flood stage because of runoff, but I have seen it a lot worse at this time of the year. That being said, with this snowfall that we had and it's sitting on top of the ground and having an opportunity to soak in, I would imagine is good news for areas that have been really dry as we get through 2025. For
sure. I mean, as much as we might not like it, we need it. Snowfall was less than normal through March. It was about, I think, half. We only received about half of what we normally receive in March, and some areas had less. So we do need that snowfall to help replenish the water tables and help with the drought situation, which actually did get a bit worse by the end of March. In many areas, in New Brunswick and PEI, it did improve, but it actually got worse for most of mainland Nova Scotia. So the late season snowfall, well, we don't really like it. We kind of do need it to help get us into a better position as we go into the late spring with the wildfire season and then the growing season for the typically drier summer months that we do experience. Certainly it's good that we've been receiving that snowfall, and rainfall has also been plentiful so far this April, which I know we'd like a bit more of a balance, but certainly it's helping put a dent into the generally drier conditions that we have been experiencing. I mean, in some cases back to last summer, but really through the fall and into winter, it's been quite dry. And, so many people were, having issues with their wells, running dry right through the winter. So, for those people, this rain is certainly welcome. And like you mentioned, I've noticed it too. The water levels on the rivers and lakes do seem to be higher than where they were, at the end of fall and through the winter. So that's a really good sign.
Aalders, we're progressing into spring, regardless if the ground is wet or not. We are, and we know in our part of the world that when we get into the spring and into the summertime, then comes the H word, and that is the hurricane season. I know it's a bit early yet, but as I understand it, we're looking at La Nina this year, and what will that mean to and I guess this is crystal balling, and I don't know if you have the answer to it, but what was this going to mean? What does a La Nina mean to hurricane season, and what we can expect in the Atlantic this year?
So the La Nina, which was ongoing since January, actually has just been declared as being finished. So we're done with La Nina. It was short-lived. It was fairly weak. It kind of defied the expectations. It showed up really late and it did not last long. And the current outlook is that we'll stay in a neutral phase, so not La Nina or El Nino through the rest of the spring, and a high probability that we stay neutral right through the upcoming summer season. So that makes it a little more difficult in trying to predict what the hurricane season could be like, because typically if you have a La Nina, you see an increase in hurricane development and activity, not necessarily in the number that impacts Atlantic Canada, but in the Atlantic basin as a whole. You typically see more named storms during a La Nina because wind conditions are more favorable over the Atlantic. La Nina creates less wind shear to disturb and rip apart those hurricanes, so there's a more favorable environment for them to develop, whereas, typically an El Nino suppresses that activity. Where we're going to be in a neutral likely through the upcoming summer, it's likely going to still provide conditions that are favorable for development of, tropical storms and hurricanes in the Atlantic basin. It likely won't be leaning, closer to, say, El Nino, where it would suppress activity. It will likely be middle of the road and still help enhance that potential development. I know one of the outlooks from, I believe, Colorado State University came out last week, and they're predicting, another above average season in the Atlantic basin. And I want to stress that above average means in the Atlantic basin as a whole, not necessarily for Atlantic Canada. We don't know if or how many storms will track into Canada's response zone. But it does look like, it will be we're in a trend of, active above normal hurricane and tropical storm activity in the Atlantic, and have been for the last several years, and it looks like that will continue. It doesn't look like the move from La Nina to neutral will really change anything significantly. We'll have to obviously wait and see, because while we note historically the factors that impact a hurricane season, sometimes there's other factors at play that have the upper hand more than it typically would. We had an El Nino year, and that typically suppresses hurricanes, and we ended up having a very active season. So there's a lot of factors that you have to look at. Generally, it looks like it will be a busier season once again, but we'll just have to wait and see. And I should note, too, that it looks like the favorability by the late summer, fall could be towards another La Nina. So very uncertain. We'll be certainly keeping an eye on it as we go through the crucial summer months and into the fall.
Mother Nature being uncertain, go figure, right?
Yeah, of course.
Aalders, I know you're busy. I appreciate your time today, sir.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
That is our weather specialist, Mr. Aalders Aalders. Going to stop and take a break, and when we come back, it's time to talk to Cecil. The Blue Jays almost did something to the Boston Red Sox that they haven't done since the mid-'80s. Just about happened last night. We'll talk to Cecil about it when we come back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Holstrand. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Happy Friday afternoon to one and all as we get closer and closer to that finish line, which is, of course, the weekend. It is the traditional time that we welcome in our traditional friend, and that is Cecil Wright. Cecil, how are you?
What's going on, Dan?
Boy, it almost happened yesterday, the first time the Blue Jays had swept the Red Sox 4 games at Fenway, but yeah, they just about did it, but they didn't get it quite done.
Well, you know, the temperature there for the series was somewhere in the vicinity of about 2 degrees.
Yeah,
for crying out loud! It was a. I don't think there's ever been a series in Fenway that there wasn't a home run hit.
Yep.
Was there a home run hit in this series?
No,
not that I can recall.
And the ball just dies in that air, right? It just literally, like, it comes off the bat, you're like, oh, there, it's gone, and it, catching the outfield next, right?
Well, you know it's pretty bad when these guys got masks on, and they're trying to play the game of baseball. We got a problem.
Yeah. So. That being said, Blue Jays in second place in the division ahead of the Red Sox.
Oh, please. It's like 2 a.m. in the baseball season. You got a long way to go, buddy.
Right, but
You should be happy, though, because they did sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to a ridiculous contract.
See, so I got to ask you this question, and I talked about this earlier this week when it happened. Baseball, sports salaries in general they're just getting to be ridiculous, are they not?
Well, I can't see any average person being able to afford going to a game anymore. You just can't say, they're going to have to raise ticket prices in Toronto just to keep Vladdy. And are they going to now sign Bo Bichette? And if they do, how much is that going to cost?
Right.
I mean, it's crazy, man. It's really crazy. It's priced me right out of the game, personally. I have to stay home now and watch everything on TV.
And, that's what we do now, unfortunately. Yep. That being said, Guerrero Jr.'s contract, I think, is the third richest, or depending where you look, second or the third richest in Major League Baseball. I would imagine that by the time we have this conversation next year, he'll be 15th or 16th on the list.
Yeah, there's always some youngsters that are coming up, but it's the veterans that have established themselves over at least 4 or 5 years that get the big bucks like this. Juan Soto and, Devers got the money in Boston, although that contract now is minuscule compared to what Vladdy's getting.
Right.
But there'll be somebody else. I'm not sure who the next crop of free agents are, but I guarantee one of them is going to break the bank.
Our 3 big hitters haven't hit a home run yet this year.
Yeah, and here you are bragging about how good they're doing.
Well, imagine if they did, Cecil. Holy smokes, we'd be leading the major leagues, wouldn't we?
Well, let me tell you something. The thing that's impressed me is the Toronto pitching.
Right.
The starting pitching has been excellent,
right.
man.
And nobody expected it.
That up.
No, nobody expected it, right?
No, nobody expected this out of Chris Bassett, let me tell you. Gosman has been consistent, throughout his career. Barrios is the guy that, I just get, sometimes he's hot, sometimes he's cold, but when he's hot, man, he is on.
He's a great pitcher, but very streaky, you are correct. Speaking of that nobody predicted that the Halifax Mooseheads would be playing hockey this time of the year. After going up against Drummondville, they managed to do something a Q League team's never done before, a 16th seed, win a series and advanced. They're playing tonight against the Huskies in Rouyn-Noranda. Your thoughts on the Mooseheads thus far?
Well, I was trying to tell people, the fact that they even made the playoffs was good.
Yeah.
And then I saw that they were going to have to go up against Drummondville with my buddy Luke Woodworth. And I'm like, well, they got no shot there. You know what? Drummondville was, 30, 35 points better than them in the regular season? Yeah. So I'm thinking, the fact that they're in the series, that's pretty cool. But let's temper the expectations. And, That Steinman, man, holy cow, what do you have? 38 saves to shut them out in Drummondville?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
In a game 7.
Unbelievable.
Right?
Yeah.
So, as I had a conversation earlier today with Garreth MacDonald, the play-by-play announcer for the Moose, and I said that, the Moose have advanced and no pressure, right? Nobody expected them to be where they are. All the pressure in this series is on the Huskies.
Absolutely. Halifax has absolutely nothing to lose. They can go out there, be as loose as all get out because nobody expects them to advance, same as they didn't against Drummondville. But, they've already made their season, in my opinion, with beating Drummondville. They have proven that the regular season means diddly.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as you're healthy for the playoffs, that's what matters.
And all the noise in the background. I know the locker room would try and shut that out, but all the noise of, you have no chance, you're going to get swept and all that stuff. We've already done it once. Why not do it again? Why not us, right?
Well, you know what? There's nothing a coach likes better than being in this situation.
Right.
Because he can say whatever the hell he wants to say, and win, lose, or draw, he's going to come out smelling like a rose thanks to a hard-working group of teenagers, man. And the way they shut down Drummondville in that Game 7, unbelievable.
And just
I'm amazed.
Just think of the future. They have the youngest roster in the Q League. So this could be the beginning of something that could be really cool moving forward.
Well, let's hope so. I got my fingers crossed for them. Next year and the year after should be beautiful.
Cecil, before we go, quickly, some news out of the NFL today, and my Browns are making a move to solidify their future and are signing a 40-year-old quarterback in to try and to right the ship. And what is going on with the AFC North and signing old guys? The Browns
Flacco?
They signed Joe Flacco for a season on an incentive contract, and the big rumor is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to sign Aaron Rodgers. So we're going to have two 40-year-old quarterbacks in the AFC North.
Listen, Aaron Rodgers, come on. You've seen your better days. Let it go. Forget about it. Besides, if somebody hits him, he's going to fold like a tent. Yeah, he is. And as far as Flacco and Cleveland, I guess that tells you all you need to know about Deshaun Watson, doesn't it?
Well, he did his Achilles again, and to recover from one of those is tough. Two, the Browns should have never signed him. Worst trade in NFL history, and I hope that the Haslams move on from him and just say we're done.
Well, I agree with you. I think it was the worst trade in NFL history, too. And, Deshaun Watson, though, is laughing all the way to the bank.
Right, absolutely. Cecil, appreciate it, sir. Have a great weekend.
Love you, buddy.
That is Cecil Wright, and that will do it, ladies and gentlemen, for this edition and this week of the Todd Veinotte Show. It's been a fantastic 2 weeks. My utmost appreciation to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, who has been absolutely wonderful over these last 2 weeks, keeping me in shape, which isn't necessarily easy to do, but she does a great job at it. Todd will be back in the big chair on Monday. I know you're looking forward to having a conversation with him after a couple of weeks off. Thank you to each and every one of you that took the time to dial the numbers and join the program. You make my day when you do that. Thank you to all of our guests that took time out of their busy schedules to join us and give us a little context on the events that are happening in the world. Get out there and enjoy Nova Scotia. We're so lucky to live in this part of the world. People travel here to come and see what we have. It's going to be a nice day tomorrow. I hope to see you somewhere out and about. Until then, everybody, please take care of yourself and be kind to one another.